For this video, I went ahead and watched all the videos and took down notes of what I thought, so I'm just going to read those to you. For the first video listening cycle, I noticed that the therapist showed body language that indicated a strong interest in what the client was saying. When he wanted further clarification, he asked the client a question that was basically a summary of what she had just said and something that would cause her to go deeper into discussing the topic. He also seemed to try to find what was really at the core of the client's presenting problem and why those things bothered her so much. For the second video, Invitational Skills, I noticed that the therapist was very warm and welcomed the client and thanked him for coming. She allowed him to express what the issue was and didn't act like he was overreacting or letting his emotions get the best of him. I also noticed that she displayed a lot of empathy. She expressed that it seemed like the client was having feelings of anxiety even when just recalling the stressful event that was the start of his anxiety. I noticed that she even gave him a reassuring touch on the arm that showed that she genuinely cared about his feelings and his anxiety. For the Reflecting Feelings video, I noticed that the therapist focused on understanding what the client was feeling that was upsetting her. He reflected what he thought were the feelings that she was expressing so that she could confirm or clarify what she was trying to say. He also seemed to notice how there were times when the client felt satisfied with carrying the burdens of others and being responsible for them. This occasional satisfaction seemed to fuel the desire to be responsible for others' feelings, even though she resented having the desire to be responsible. The Reflecting Meaning video, I noticed that the therapist was very warm and inviting and asked the client to present his problem. During the time when the client was trying to express what was bothering him, the therapist helped the client label some emotions that the client was struggling with. The therapist then asked several questions to figure out why the situation might be bothering the client. He attempted to understand the cultural background of the client and figure out which parts of that background made up the core values of the client. Now, for the second question, it was not what I expected the setting to be. I always imagined the setting to be a couple of couches and maybe a coffee table or something in the middle, kind of like a living room setting. But I did notice that the flow of the session seemed to be what I expected, and with the therapist asking the questions and kind of getting clarification on what they were trying to understand. One thing I did notice that was different than what I'm familiar with is that the clients didn't have any kind of recurring phrases that they went to. As pastoral care counselor, when I'm dealing with parishioners, a lot of times they'll have these phrases like, I don't know what I'd do if it wasn't for the Lord, or God's going to take care of me. And I think a lot of times we as Christians tend to use these phrases to hide what's really wrong. We think that the idea of having problems are things that make us bad people. And I don't agree with that, obviously, but I think that it may be difficult in a church setting for someone to express how they really feel because they might feel like they might be judged. So I want to know what you think about that. Do you think that the counseling session as a professional counseling session is different than that of a church counseling session, where there's a pastor and a parishioner versus a client and therapist?